Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mailbox for the 7th of June 2011. My name is Totalbiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of community interaction, questions, and discussion on the matters of gaming. You can email in mailbox@cynicalbrit.com with topics and questions for future shows. This one comes in from a house that says, now that E3 is over, what did you think? Personally, I think it was quite a snore. The press conferences seem to be about speeches of innovation, sales, bundle packs, stage demos from people who think they know what they're talking about, golf and dancing, etc., hardware with remakes on it, software updates, and just general goofing around. And while I know that this is to attract another audience to get more attention to their products, hence more money, I think they forgot why they're here, to appeal to the gamers. I don't mind taking pictures of objects and having them as a digital copy on my 360, but that's not what I watch E3 for. I watched for the games. What annoys me is the main three didn't even have that many videos on things that they're working on, like they have nothing coming up in the future. Do you think that they're shying away from their main consumer of their products, or do you think the E3 next year will get better? Oh, and again, anything catch your eye? I don't know if you're watching the same E3 as me, but Sony and particularly Nintendo showed off a ton of stuff that to me seems incredibly appealing to gamers. Now, I have to point this out, by the way. E3 is a trade show, and while it is also an expo, a good few years ago, they actually turned it into a proper trade show and just threw everyone else out. So no booth babes, none of that nonsense, we're just going to do trade show style. And in the last few years, it's gone back to the way that it was previously, but it's still primarily a trade show, which means things like bundle packs, things like SKU prices, different variations on hardware, that's all important information. Bear in mind that a lot of the people in the audience are actually industry people. Yes, this does matter. So it's not just about, ooh, can we create a flashy show for the gamers? That's not what it's all about, and it's a fairly naive way to look at it. I think the major disappointment was the Microsoft show. It was fairly terrible. There was too much Kinect involved in it. And Kinect has, thus far, not proven itself capable of actually creating any kind of reasonable game that would appeal to the mainstream gamer demographic. And I mean the mainstream gamer demographic as opposed to the casual gamer and things like that. Again, there's nothing wrong with being a casual gamer, but Kinect is firmly not aimed at me. It's an amazing piece of technology, but I don't care about it because it serves no practical purpose for me whatsoever to enhance my gaming experience. In fact, it does exactly the opposite. As we've seen with most of the software, even a lot of the first-party software for it, the controls are laggy, they are clunky, and they are highly inaccurate. So you can't create a reasonable gaming experience on it without going into stuff like, say, Dance Central, which I also do not care about. I prefer some kind of tactile feedback. The fact that they went all in on Kinect this year is what really upset me, and then they turned around and said, oh, well, we're also going to be releasing Halo 4, let's ignore the fact that we said we wouldn't be doing that, and we're remaking Halo 1, and that was really about it for Microsoft. I can't say I was all that impressed. I mean, the Kinect implementation of Mass Effect 3 looks highly gimmicky. I don't see the point in that at all. And Ghost Recon Future Soldier, again, I've seen quite a bit about that already, and that's a multi-platform title, so once again, I honestly don't care, and Gears 3, really? Yeah, I've had my fill of chest-high walls, thank you very much. Sony was pretty solid. I don't think they really showed anything unbelievably incredible, aside from their new handheld. And aside from its ridiculous name, it looks awesome. The back touch panel, I doubted its capability. I had no idea what the point of it was, but I'm seeing now, through some of the actual game demonstrations, what it could be used for. And I think that it definitely adds to it. It's a really nice piece of handheld tech. It's got a lot of power behind it, and it looks to have a lot of very good third-party support. I was watching them play Street Fighter X Tekken on it, and it looked wonderful. Absolutely awesome. That was really good. I think some of the move stuff they did was a little shaky. Yes, I'm aware of the pun, thank you. I think what Sony keeps proving is the move's a really nice piece of tech to implement into existing IP, but it's not cool to design a game based around it. For instance, medieval moves. I didn't care. Sports Champions for move is actually quite nice, but I was more interested in seeing the fact that move was being implemented into a bunch of first-person shooters, because Killzone 3, for instance, is probably one of the best console shooters I've ever played as a direct result of having move support. Resistance is going to have it, a lot of other games are going to have it, so that's good. You know, I feel there's a reason for me to own the move. I already do own the move. It's a nice piece of kit and it's highly accurate, and to me, it's the next best thing to having a keyboard and mouse. And as a direct result of that, I'm willing to play games that I otherwise wouldn't be willing to play, which is good, because most of those games happen to be exclusives, and I can't play them on PC anyway. Nintendo are crazy. I'm sorry, they are, and it's wonderful. It's so, so very wonderful. Wii U was just... It took me about 20 minutes to get my head around what they were actually trying to do, but I just love the fact that they're willing to go balls out innovative and not really give a damn. It's like, well, we're just going to make this, you know, we're going to make a controller that's also a console, it's also a screen, it's also a freaking iPad clone with controls, and it's nuts. I mean, it really is nuts, but it's also so great. So I'm really happy about that. There's obviously an awful lot of good third-party support there. I think Nintendo actually showed a massive amount of good, solid third-party support for not only the 3DS, but also for the Wii U. And I'm very happy to see that, honestly. I would like to know what they're going to do with the Wii U on a first-party level, since they didn't really show that. But it was a ridiculous, and I do mean a ridiculous conference, to the point where I think they were just having a laugh. I think that's the best thing about Nintendo's conferences. They always seem like they're having fun, and they're willing to go all-out ridiculous at many points. So that really covers the major three, and to me, only Microsoft was a really big disappointment. Sony was really, really solid, had a lot to show, and Nintendo was crazy, as Nintendo tends to be. So, every year, everyone says, oh, E3 was such a letdown, oh my god. I've been monitoring and covering E3 in podcast form for about 6 years now, really, and this has happened every single year. So, whatever, you know? Everyone always thinks that they could have shown something crazier, but no. Nintendo certainly couldn't have, and honestly, the Vita looks like a really nice machine as well. So, I'm just waiting for Microsoft to put out something worthwhile. This one comes in from Tim, and it's also related to E3 and motion control. What are your thoughts on all the emphasis on motion control in games? PS Move, Kinect, etc. Do you think that they have their place in hardcore games like Ghost Recon or Bioshock? I personally do not care for motion control in hardcore games. Personally, I prefer my games on PC, and the only kinds of game I like on console anymore are games like Zelda, Darksiders, Devil May Cry, and Jak and Daxter. And even in those games, motion control seems to be creeping in. Ironically, motion control seems to disconnect me from the game, as I'm spending most of my time trying to get the controls to do what I want them to do, instead of focusing on the game itself. Have you had this experience? Well, I don't own a Kinect, so I can't really speak to it, but I have used one before, and I can't say I was particularly impressed by that. And as far as I can tell, there hasn't been a single game on the Kinect up to this point that's demonstrated that it can be used in a reasonable gaming experience. It doesn't make any sense in terms of it being in driving games, doesn't make any sense in terms of it being in fighting games, in shooters, or anything like that. It's just, it's silly. While it's an incredible piece of technology and it does expand what developers can do in terms of the variety of games they can put together, they can't make traditional games on that thing. They just can't do it. You need a controller. It's as simple as that. Move, on the other hand, I've been really impressed with, and as I said, Move is great because it's an option. You do not have to play most Move-enabled games with Move. In fact, I'm trying to think of... yeah, I think there's only about 10 or so games where you have to have a Move. All of the others are either patched in support for Move, or it's like, well, this game also has Move support. Like Ruse, for instance. You can play Ruse with a pad, or you can play Ruse with Move. Resident Evil 5, you can play it with a pad, or you can play it with Move. Killzone 3, you can play it with a pad, or you can play it with Move. That's awesome. That's really, really good, because Move has allowed developers to give people more choice in how they want to approach the games. And to me as a PC gamer, the biggest block for me in enjoying certain types of games on console, specifically first-person shooters, it's mostly first-person, to some degree third-person. It's anything that requires any kind of precise, ranged aim. That does not work on a pad. I can't stand it. I hate aiming with a pad. It is awful. I have, up until this point, despised playing any kind of FPS on a console until Move came out. And when Move came out, and I was able to start playing Killzone 3 with that, it was a freaking revelation. It's like, this is not a mouse and keyboard, but it's an adaptation of what I feel with a mouse, but I can use it from my armchair. Yeah? I can loaf out on my big armchair and play FPS on a console or third-person shooter, like, say, Resident Evil 5, which also works really well with the Move, and I can get a great experience from that. And to be fair, Move control isn't all that gimmicky. That's something you really have to understand. There's very little waggle in a lot of these games. You don't have to waggle about like a lunatic when you're playing Killzone, for instance. That's not what the Move is in that game. It's a replacement for your mouse, only you hold it in your hand. You don't use it on a flat surface. It is a mouse for an armchair, and it does so incredibly well. And I really, really like the Move. So you can put the Move in any game, as far as I'm concerned, as long as it's an option. To be fair, the Wii kind of does a similar thing. A lot of games also support classic controller, and they will support the Wiimote Nunchuck. GoldenEye, for instance, you can use a classic controller for that, or you can use the Wiimote Nunchuck, and actually I prefer to use the Wiimote Nunchuck for that game. So to me, those two motion control systems are not a replacement for controllers. They are an alternative to controllers, and they work really well in certain kinds of games. There are others like, say, Darksiders, Devil May Cry, God of War, in other words, spectacle fighter third-person action games, obviously fighting games, racing games. They work much, much better with a traditional controller, as opposed to first-person shooters and third-person shooters, and to some degree strategy games that work much better with the motion controller. So as I said, it's about choice, it's not about shoehorning it in there, it's about providing it as a legitimate alternative if people want to use it. And that's good, that's really, really awesome. This one comes in from Banny that says, it's been announced that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 will not have dedicated servers. What's up with that? The only perk PC gaming had over console gaming was the fact that we had dedicated servers, and they didn't. I don't seem to understand why they wouldn't opt for dedicated servers. It's a major selling point, especially given the competition with Battlefield 3. Well, I wouldn't say that that's the only thing. I mean, for one, a modern gaming PC is better than a console in every possible respect performance-wise, without a shadow of a doubt. It's gotten to that point now, and anyone that tells you otherwise is an idiot. So, obviously you're going to get performance benefits from running on a PC. You're going to get higher quality graphics, assuming your PC is up to running that. You're going to get faster load times. You're going to get all sorts of benefits on that side of things. Plus, of course, you get things like modding and the ability to customize your experience beyond what you can do on a console. You get a lot more flexibility. And here's the thing, Activision don't care. It's as simple as that. For Activision, the PC market just does not matter. It doesn't. I'm sorry. Not in terms of Call of Duty. There is no reason for them to care. Or at least, so they think. Now, Black Ops actually included dedicated servers, but it didn't really help all that much because the netcode for that game is still awful, hit detection is off, there's all sorts of other problems like, say, backspawning, which have yet to be addressed. And while there are a set of modding tools coming out for that game which may improve things, I certainly hope so, it didn't really benefit it all that much. I don't think Activision thinks it's worth the trouble. And when it comes to Call of Duty, they just simply don't care about PC gamers anymore. Yes, Battlefield 3 will crush on PC. And how many copies are going to get sold on console? That's the point. That's the really scary thing. Yes, we could all go and buy Battlefield 3, and I certainly hope that we do. But think about this for a second. A premier AAA title that was highly reviewed across the board, with the exception of one guy from Destructoid, who I will not mention, and he needs a good slapping for that. The Witcher 2, yeah? That sold, I believe in its first week, 400,000 copies on PC, and I would imagine it's probably past 500,000 now, but that's actually not a great sales figure in comparison to other games. It really, really isn't. I'm sorry, it's not. I wish that it was. But at the end of the day, you had Dragon Age 2, which actually did not sell very well in its first week, sell about 700,000 across the 3 platforms in the course of a week. And that was a very, very weak launch, honestly, especially in comparison to all of the other BioWare games. You've got stuff like, I think Mass Effect 2 sold, what, 2 million in its first week? That's a pretty big deal. And from information, which is obviously sketchy, it's kind of hard to get hold of these figures, it was around 6 or 7 million by halfway through the year. So, to be fair, yes, while Witcher 2 is considered to be a success on the PC platform, that's still not a huge amount of sales. And while it's great for CD Projekt Red, because they have managed to, by the sounds of it, make back the money they spent on it, and they are doing really well for themselves, for a mega publisher like Activision, they don't really care. I mean, 400,000 for them is a dismal failure, for God's sake. They will sell X trillion copies, and obviously that's an exaggeration, but you get the idea, on consoles, on PS3 and 360. That you can guarantee. And they could sell 0 copies on PC and they wouldn't care. They would have no reason to care. That game prints money for them on consoles at $60 a copy, and with, what, $120 prestige editions and nonsense, it prints money for them on console. They don't care. Battlefield 3 could sell 2 million copies on PC. And that would be a lot of frickin' copies. An awful lot of copies. That's more than Minecraft, and Minecraft is, I believe, the most successful PC game around at the moment. I can't think of any other game on PC that's actually sold that many. It could sell like 2 million copies, and that wouldn't even be a candle to the numbers that Modern Warfare 3 is going to get on console. So that's why Activision don't care. There's no reason for them to. And to be honest, screw them. Do we really want Modern Warfare 3? Does anyone want Modern Warfare 3 in comparison to Battlefield 3? Consider that for a second. I'd prefer it if Activision just flat out didn't release it. I mean, God's sake, the Modern Warfare 2 debacle was ridiculous. It's a shame that nobody had the spine to actually boycott that game. I am happy to say that I still do not own a copy of that game, and I never ever will. One of the only people who actually stick it out with that damn boycott. But yeah, I don't care. Activision can just go to hell with Modern Warfare. The Modern Warfare 2 port for the PC was lousy as hell. Text chat, why do you need that? I mean, the arrogance of Infinity Ward was unbelievable. They had all sorts of crazy press conferences going on there. So, yeah, let's support Battlefield 3 as much as we can, assuming that it turns out to be good. It sounds like DICE are going to do well by us. Bad Company 2, for all of its problems over the first few weeks of launch, was a really solid PC title, and I enjoyed it an awful lot. Hell, I'm going to go back to playing it, I think, because it is just that good. And Battlefield 3 is looking really great. It really, really is. So, support Battlefield 3. Don't worry so much about Modern Warfare 3. And as regards to the dedicated server thing, they don't care, and honestly, neither should you. Okay, folks, that is me done for the day. The game in the background was, of course, Torchlight. I felt like playing a hack and slash that was a bit better than Dungeon Siege 3. I'd like to apologize, although it's kind of not really my fault that I didn't demonstrate the other form in Dungeon Siege 3, the fire elemental thingy, because apparently change attack stance means change into a big ball of fire. The game doesn't explain that, and it pops the tutorial up for about 3 seconds. So there you go. I don't know, Dungeon Siege 3 seems alright, certainly. It seems pretty enjoyable, but it also seems fairly average, and it's not like the first 2 games. It's not even the same style of game. It's more like a polished-up, glorified version of Throne of Agony on the PSP, which I don't think PC gamers were really looking for. Personally, I think I'll just wait for Torchlight 2. That looks very nice. I'll see you next time.